I'm Ashley, 26 years old, and 3 weeks ago, I came terrifyingly close to losing my left leg. Not from the initial accident itself, but because my own family turned their backs when I needed them most. Imagine this. I'm trapped in a hospital bed, watching the infection creep steadily up my leg like a fuse burning in slow motion. The doctors give me just 48 hours. I desperately need $10,000 for emergency surgery. So I reach out to my parents. Dad's reply? We just purchased a boat for $45,000. Mom chimes in, a limp might finally teach you some responsibility. My sister simply laughs over the phone. You'll figure it out. Then my 69-year-old grandmother arrives, clutching an envelope containing $800. She'd sold her late husband's cherished woodworking tools, the last tangible piece of him she still had. $800 fell far short of saving my leg, but what unfolded after that? It changed everything. Before I go on, if this story touches you, please like and subscribe, but only if you truly want to hear what comes next. And drop a comment. Where are you right now, and what time is it there? I'd love to know who's with me. Now, let's rewind 4 weeks to the morning I woke up unable to feel my leg. 4 weeks ago, Tuesday morning, 6:47 a.m., I'd just wrapped a grueling 12-hour night shift in the emergency room at Mercy General. My body was surviving on pure caffeine and autopilot. I remember stripping off my scrubs, collapsing into bed, certain I'd sleep straight through to noon. Instead, I jolted awake at 9 a.m. with my left calf engulfed in flames. 5 days prior, I'd taken a minor tumble on my bike. Nothing serious, just clipped a pothole poorly and grazed my leg against the asphalt. I cleaned it, wrapped it, and carried on. ER nurses don't fuss over every little scrape. But now, staring at my leg, dread sank into my gut. The wound glowed angry red, painfully swollen, radiating heat, and a thin, ominous red streak was inching upward toward my knee, like a stark warning etched across my own skin. I recognized it instantly. Every nurse does. Cellulitis, potentially advancing to sepsis. I texted my coworker Dana. She answered on the second ring. Dana, I need you to see something. I sent the photo. A long silence. Then, Ashley, get to the ER immediately. Don't drive. Call an ambulance if necessary. That red line, it's serious. If it hits your lymph nodes, you're facing a full-blown blood infection. You know exactly what this means. I did know. I'd witnessed patients lose limbs to infections that began precisely this way. I'd held their hands, reassuring them while surgeons readied for amputation. I live alone. No roommate, no partner, no nearby family who'd answer a 9 a.m. Tuesday call just to check in. So I drove myself to the hospital, glancing at that red line in the rearview mirror as if it might advance the moment my eyes left it. Dr. Reeves was blunt. The infection is spreading fast. We must operate within 48 to 72 hours or we'll face osteomyelitis, bone infection. After that, amputation is a genuine risk. I nodded. I'd watched this scenario play out countless times, just never from the patient's side. The surgery, I asked. How much? He paused. Doctors loathe discussing costs. Debridement, IV antibiotics, possible skin graft. Roughly $15,000. Insurance? Your records indicate a coverage gap. New job, waiting period. Exactly. I'd switched hospitals 3 weeks earlier for better pay and hours. My previous coverage ended the day I left. The new plan wouldn't activate fully for another month. An hour later, the hospital's financial coordinator appeared, a young man with kind, apologetic eyes. Your emergency coverage will handle about $5,000, he said gently. That leaves approximately $10,000 out of pocket. $10,000? My savings held $4,800, every cent I'd painstakingly saved to chip away at student loans. Payment plans? I asked. We can arrange something, but we require a substantial upfront amount before scheduling surgery. I stared upward at the buzzing fluorescent lights as if they were quietly ridiculing me. $10,000? 48 hours. My thoughts drifted to the last place I'd ever wanted them to go, my family. I hadn't spoken to them in 2 months, not since Dad berated me for skipping Megan's engagement party at that upscale resort because I couldn't swap my shift. But this was literally life or limb. Surely that mattered. Surely family ties meant something when my own blood was turning toxic inside me. I dialed Mom. She answered on the fourth ring. Hair dryers hummed in the background. Ashley, hold on, I'm at the salon. I waited. 30 seconds, a full minute. Okay, I'm in the waiting area now. What's wrong? I drew a breath and laid it out. The bike fall, the infection, the urgent surgery, the $10,000 shortfall, the ticking 48-hour clock. Silence stretched. Then, you always have some crisis, don't you? I blinked hard. Excuse me? Drama, Ashley. Always drama. Your sister's wedding is in 2 months, and here you are with this. Mom, I could lose my leg. A long, exaggerated sigh. Have you checked your insurance? I explained the gap again. Well, I can't decide financial matters. You know your father manages that. I shut my eyes tight. Can you please ask him? He's occupied today. We're shopping for boats. Boats? While infection inched up my leg, my parents were browsing boats. Mom, please, I'm begging. Another pause, then softer, but no warmer. I'll bring it up with him, but Ashley, you're 26. You need to solve your own problems. I know my age. Do you? Because you're phoning your mother for money like you're still in school. Before I could reply, she added, Oh, and Megan's official engagement party is in 2 weeks at the country club. Do try to attend this time. The call ended. I sat frozen, phone still against my ear, hearing only silence. That night, sleep evaded me, not from leg pain, but from the dread of what came next. I had to call Dad. The following morning, my leg had swollen another ½ inch. He picked up instantly. Your mother mentioned you called. No hello, no concern. No, how are you? Just straight to it. I heard you're in the hospital. Pure business. Dad, I need help. I need $10,000 for surgery, or I might... Let me stop you right there. His tone stayed calm, almost light. Do you know what I did yesterday? I stayed silent. I'm Ashley, 26 years old, and 3 weeks ago, I nearly lost my left leg. Not from the accident itself, but because my family refused to step in. Picture this. I'm confined to a hospital bed, watching the infection slither up my leg like a fuse, burning in slow, deliberate silence. The doctors grant me 48 hours. I need $10,000 for life-saving surgery, so I call my parents. Dad's answer hits like ice. I bought a boat, $45,000, beautiful 28-foot sailboat. The words didn't register at first, as if he'd switched to another language. A boat for Megan, an engagement gift. Her fiancé's family owns a lake house. This way we can contribute something meaningful, show them we're not just ordinary people. I gripped the phone until my knuckles blanched. Dad, I'm in the hospital. The infection is advancing. Doctors always paint the darkest picture. It's how they pressure you to pay. I'm a nurse. I know exactly what I'm seeing. His voice hardened. Then you should know how to manage it. He continued, calm and cutting. Listen, Ashley, your sister is building a real future. She's marrying into a solid family. This boat is an investment. You're still a nurse pulling in 40 grand a year. That's not an investment. That's a sunk cost. Sunk cost. He labeled me a sunk cost. You have insurance, he went on. Use it. We raised you until 18. Our responsibility ended there. So that was his no. Figure it out yourself. He paused. And maybe this will teach you something. You've always had it too easy. A little hardship builds character. Then he hung up. I didn't cry. Shock had frozen the tears. $45,000 for a boat. Nothing for my leg. An hour later, Mom called back, not to apologize, but to justify. Your father isn't heartless, Ashley. He simply believes in tough love. Tough love? The laugh that escaped me sounded more like a choke. I could lose my leg. You're exaggerating. You always do. I'm staring at it right now, Mom. The red line has climbed past my knee. She brushed that aside. You have to understand. We've given you so much already. The car when you graduated high school, help with your first apartment deposit, that Florida trip when you were... The car was Megan's hand-me-down she no longer wanted. The deposit was a loan I repaid in full. The Florida trip was a family vacation when I was 12. See? This is exactly what I mean. You're ungrateful. You forget the good things. I shut my eyes. Mom, I'm asking for help once, for something that could alter my entire life. And I'm telling you that sometimes we learn from our struggles. Walking with a limp might teach you responsibility, might make you reconsider leaving a stable job for something uncertain. There it was. She blamed me for switching hospitals, for daring to seek better. You think I deserve to lose my leg because I pursued a better opportunity? Challenges are placed in our path for a purpose. I had no words left that wouldn't erupt as a scream. We love you, Ashley. We just can't enable you. Enable me? As if begging for emergency medical care was a weakness they needed to cure. She hung up. I gazed at the ceiling, struggling to recall the last time they'd said, I love you, without a condition trailing behind. I couldn't. Megan called that evening. For one foolish second, hope sparked. Hey, Ash, Mom said you're in the hospital. Yeah, infection in my leg. I need surgery. That sucks. She sounded detached, not concerned. So, are you coming to the engagement party? I need a final head count. I nearly laughed. Megan, I might lose my leg. I don't know if I'll even be able to walk by then. Oh, come on, don't be so dramatic. A soft chuckle. You'll figure it out. You always do. Did Mom and Dad tell you they won't help with the surgery? I mean, they don't have unlimited money, Ashley. They just bought a $45,000 boat. For me. Silence. Then, that's different. That's an investment in our family's future. Jason's parents have certain expectations. And my leg isn't worth investing in? Don't twist my words. Look, I'm sorry you're dealing with this, but I can't help either. The wedding is expensive. We're stretched thin. I thought of all the times I'd covered for her, lied to our parents in high school about where she was, lent her money she never repaid, listened to her crises for hours without reciprocity. Megan, I've never asked you for anything, not once, and I've never guilt-tripped you. But here we are. Her tone chilled. Figure it out, Ashley. Take out a loan. Start a GoFundMe. I don't know. Just don't expect me to raid my wedding fund because you picked up an infection. She paused. Oh, and the party's black tie optional. Don't embarrass me by showing up in scrubs. Click. I set the phone down and stared at the blank wall. 3 calls. 3 refusals. Not one genuine, I'm sorry. I had no one left. Or so I believed. Sleep refused to come. The clock showed 11:47 p.m., 31 hours until the surgery deadline. I had $4,800. I needed $10,000, and every door had slammed shut. Then the door eased open. My grandmother stood there, Grace Hayes, 69, white hair in a neat bun, wearing the familiar cardigan. She moved slowly across the room, drew up a chair and settled beside my bed. Her hand closed over mine, warm, thin, faintly trembling. "Does it hurt?" she asked. Not, "Why didn't you call?" Not, "What do you need?" Just, "Does it hurt?" The tears came then, unstoppable. She held my hand through every sob. No rushing, no urging me to be strong. She simply let me unravel. When my breathing steadied, she reached into her purse and withdrew an envelope. $800, she said quietly. I know it's not enough, Grandma. No, I sold Harold's tools, the woodworking set. My heart seized. Those tools were sacred. Grandpa had crafted furniture with them for 40 decades. After his passing, Grandma preserved them in the garage like a memorial. She'd sometimes polish them just to feel him near. Grandma, you can't. It's done. Her voice held steady resolution. Linda bought them. She paid more than their value because she understood what they meant. She pressed the envelope into my palms. Harold would have wanted this. He loved you, Ashley, and so do I. Words failed me. $800 couldn't save my leg, but in that quiet moment, it rescued something deeper. It reminded me that love still exists in this world, even when it comes from the places you least expect. I'm going to pause here for just a second. My parents wouldn't part with $10,000, yet my grandmother gave up everything she had left for $800. So I want to ask you, what would you have done in my place? Comment grandma if you believe she deserves to be cherished forever. Comment boundaries if you think I should have cut my parents off right then and there. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe. This story is only beginning to unfold. Now, let me tell you what happened next. I clutched the envelope as if it might vanish the moment I held it too tightly. Grandma, who did you sell them to? We can buy them back. I can't let you do this. Linda Martinez from church, she said, patting my hand gently. She's had her eye on Harold's tools for years, wanted to take up woodworking after her husband passed. Linda Martinez. The name was familiar. She owned a modest consignment shop downtown and occasionally dealt in antiques and vintage items. She and Grandma had been close friends for decades. Did she ask why you were selling? Grandma's gaze met mine, calm, unflinching. I told her the truth, that my granddaughter needed emergency surgery and her parents wouldn't help. My stomach twisted. Grandma, you... What should I have done? Lied? She gave a small shrug. Linda asked questions, I answered them. She was horrified, by the way, asked me twice if I was certain about my own daughter, Patricia, my mother, Grandma's child. What did you tell her? I said, Patricia has forgotten where she came from. Grandma's voice grew quieter, but steel ran beneath it. Your mother wasn't always this way, Ashley. Things shifted when she married your father. Money became everything. Image became everything. Love turned conditional. You're not embarrassed that people know? Embarrassed? She nearly laughed, a soft, sad sound. I'm heartbroken, sweetheart, but not embarrassed. I did nothing wrong, and neither did you. She squeezed my hand. The truth isn't something to bury. If the truth makes someone look bad, perhaps they should have chosen differently. I thought of all the years I'd shielded my family, made excuses, forced smiles through tense holidays, acted like everything was normal. Maybe Grandma was right. Maybe the truth had been waiting to surface for far too long. I just hadn't realized how quickly it would travel. The next morning, my phone vibrated with an unknown number. Hello, is this Ashley Townsend? A man's voice, warm, steady, kind. Yes, this is she. This is Pastor Thomas Reed from Grace Community Church. I'm a friend of your grandmother's. I pushed myself up against the pillows, puzzled. Yes? I heard about your situation. Linda shared it with me, and word moves quickly in our congregation. He paused. Your grandmother has been a cornerstone here for 40 years. She's carried so many families through their darkest days. Now it feels like time for the community to carry hers. I'm sorry, Pastor, I don't quite follow. We're putting together a collection, nothing elaborate, just people wanting to give back a fraction of what Grace has given them over the years. His tone softened. I can't promise the total, but I wanted you to know you're not facing this alone. I couldn't find words. Strangers, people I'd never even met, were pooling money to help me, while my own parents browsed boat accessories. Pastor Reed, I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything. Just focus on healing. He hesitated. One more thing, Ashley. A few members have asked if they should reach out to your parents, perhaps explain the circumstances, encourage them to step up. A chill ran through me. What do you mean? Several people know your family. Your parents attend another church, but this is a small town. Conversations happen. The walls seemed to press closer. If word reached my parents, if they learned the entire community knew what they'd refuse to do. Pastor, I'm not trying to stir up trouble. I understand. His voice stayed gentle. What would you like us to do? The question lingered like a live wire. I lay awake the entire night, wrestling with it. Every instinct screamed to protect my family. That's what I'd always done. When Dad snapped at servers, I apologized for him. When Mom made cutting remarks at Thanksgiving, I redirected the conversation. When Megan claimed my ideas as her own, I stayed silent. Keep the peace, don't make waves, be the good daughter. But look where that path had led me. Alone in a hospital bed, infection eating my leg, while the people meant to love me unconditionally bought a $45,000 boat. I thought of Grandma parting with Harold's tools, sacrificing the final remnant of her husband to gather $800, while her own daughter couldn't even skip a hair appointment. I picked up the phone and dialed Pastor Reed. "I've decided," I said. "About what I asked?" "Yes. I'm not asking you to contact my parents, and I'm not asking you to keep it quiet either." I drew a steadying breath. "If people ask what happened, tell them the truth. I won't stop you. I won't hide it." "Are you certain, Ashley? This could make things complicated." "My life is already complicated. I'm finished lying to keep other people comfortable." A long silence. Then, "That took real courage to say." "It doesn't feel like courage. It feels like surrender." Sometimes surrendering the wrong things is the bravest act of all. I ended the call and stared at the ceiling tiles. For 26 years, I'd been the family's secret keeper, the peacemaker, the one who polished every rough edge. No longer. I didn't push anyone to spread the story. I didn't demand retribution. I simply stopped covering for them, and that, it turned out, was enough. 24 hours later, I went into surgery. The church had raised $6,200, added to Grandma's $800 and my $4,800 in savings. It met the hospital's upfront requirement, exactly. They set up a payment plan for the balance. I woke in recovery with my leg still there, bandaged, throbbing, but mine. Dr. Reeves stopped by that afternoon. We caught it in time. Another day or two, and the conversation would have been very different. I nodded, too drained to speak. "You're fortunate," he added. "Not everyone has a community that rallies like yours did." Fortunate. I let the words settle in my mind. Lucky to have strangers show more care than my own flesh and blood. The first face I saw when my eyes finally focused was Grandma, still in that same worn cardigan, seated in the same chair beside my bed. "Welcome back," she said, her smile soft and steady. "Did you sleep here all night?" "Just a little nap. I'm too old to make a proper bed out of hospital chairs." I reached for her hand. "Thank you for everything." "Don't thank me yet. You've got physical therapy ahead, young lady." She gave my arm a gentle pat. "Oh, and I called your mother, told her you made it through surgery." My heart dropped. "What did she say?" Grandma's expression stayed even, though a small spark flickered in her eyes. She asked, "Who paid for it?" Of course she did. Not, "Is Ashley all right?" Not, "Thank God she's safe." Just, "Who paid?" What did you tell her? The truth, that the church community stepped up, that strangers cared more about her daughter than she did. I waited for the old reflex to kick in, the guilt, the urge to pick up the phone and smooth it all over, make peace at any cost. It never arrived. "Good," I said quietly, and I meant it. 1 week post-surgery, I was recovering at Grandma's house. Physical therapy twice a week, cautious walks through her garden, and more home-cooked meals than I'd eaten in years. That's when the ripples finally reached my parents. Grandma walked into the kitchen one morning, holding her phone like it might bite. "Your mother called 5 times. What did she want?" "She's upset. Apparently, someone at her country club brought up your surgery, asked how you're recovering. I set my coffee down. How did they even know? Small town, Ashley, and Linda knows people who know people. Grandma sat across from me. Patricia is furious, said I made her look bad by telling folks what happened. You made her look bad? I echoed. She's the one who— I know exactly what she did, Grandma interrupted, voice calm but unyielding, and I told her the same thing I'll tell you. If the truth makes you look bad, maybe stop doing bad things. I almost laughed. Almost. Later that afternoon, my phone buzzed, an unknown number. Hey, Ashley, it's Derek, your uncle. Uncle Derek, Dad's younger brother. I hadn't seen him in years. There was some old, unspoken rift between him and Dad no one ever explained. I heard what happened. I'm sorry, really sorry. I didn't know you were keeping up with the family. I keep up with Mom, Grace. She tells me things. He paused. You're not alone, Ashley. I know it feels that way, but you're not. Megan's engagement party came 2 weeks after my surgery. Black tie optional, country club, 50 carefully selected guests meant to impress Jason's family. I was no longer officially invited. 3 days earlier, Megan had texted, "If your leg isn't better, don't worry about coming. We'll take pictures without you." I stayed at Grandma's. We watched old black and white films and shared popcorn while my family partied without me. But word of the evening trickled back, through Grandma, through Uncle Derek, and eventually through the woman's single question that apparently cracked the evening open. Her name was Barbara Sims. She attended Grandma's church, knew Linda, and belonged to the same country club as my parents. During cocktail hour, Barbara approached my mother with a warm smile. "Lovely to see you, Patricia. How's Ashley doing after her surgery?" Mom's face, I'm told, drained of color. "She's fine. Just a minor procedure." Minor? Barbara raised an eyebrow. Linda said she nearly lost her leg. Thank goodness the church rallied to help. You must be so grateful. The people nearby fell silent. Mom forced a smile that looked more like a wince. There were some miscommunications, but yes, we're very grateful for the community support. Miscommunications? Barbara tilted her head. Linda mentioned Ashley asked for help and couldn't get it from anyone in the family. Dad materialized at that moment, sensing the storm. "Barbara," he said tightly, "always a pleasure. Richard, I was just asking Patricia about your younger daughter. Terrible situation, but I suppose these things happen when priorities get mixed up." She glanced around at the ice sculptures, the champagne fountain, the perfectly curated elegance. "Anyway, lovely party." She walked away. The rest of the evening, according to multiple accounts, felt like a wake with better food. 2 weeks after the engagement party, Pastor Reed called again. "Ashley, I hope I'm not overstepping, but I wanted to run something by you." I was in Grandma's garden, practicing walking without the crutch. "Go ahead." "Your grandmother's 70th birthday is coming up. The congregation wants to throw her a party. Nothing lavish, just a celebration in the church hall. Food, music, people who love her." I smiled, genuinely, for the first time in weeks. She'd love that. "There's more." He hesitated. "Some folks want to invite your parents and your sister. The idea is that maybe in a warm, supportive setting, there could be a little healing." My stomach nodded. Or it could explode. "That's why I'm asking you first. What do you think?" I watched a small bird land on Grandma's fence, peck at a seed, and lift off again, so free of all this weight. "I don't want to turn Grandma's birthday into a confrontation. It should be about her, not my mess." "I understand, Ashley, but Grandma's sacrifice for you is part of her story now. People want to honor her. We're not planning to point fingers. We just want to celebrate her." I pictured it. Grandma surrounded by 80 people who had watched her give for 40 years. If my parents showed up and couldn't handle the room knowing the truth, maybe that wasn't my burden to carry anymore. "Okay, let's do it. I'll help plan." "Thank you, Ashley. This will mean the world to her." I hope he was right. But deep down, I couldn't shake the sense that something long buried was about to rise, and when it did, it might not stay quiet. Planning the party meant more afternoons at Grandma's house, sorting old photo albums, choosing decorations, laughing over stories I hadn't heard in years. 3 days before the event, I was rummaging through Grandma's closet for an old photo album when I found the box. Plain cardboard, coated in dust, labeled Harold in faint, faded marker. I knew I should leave it untouched, but curiosity, or maybe something deeper, drew my hands to the lid. Inside lay the receipt from Linda's shop, $800 for the vintage woodworking tool set, dated the exact day I was admitted to the hospital. Beneath it, a letter, handwritten, addressed to My Harold. I shouldn't have read it. My eyes betrayed me, catching the opening line before I could pull away. My love, I had to let your tools go today. The rest was a quiet confession to her departed husband. She explained why she'd sold the last piece of him she still held, how she'd watched her own daughter transform into someone unrecognizable, how she needed him to understand that saving Ashley wasn't betrayal. It was honoring the values he lived by, the ones he taught her about real family. Patricia has forgotten what matters, but I haven't, and I won't let our granddaughter pay the price for her mother's coldness. Tears were already falling by the time I reached the end. The door creaked behind me. I was wondering when you'd find that. Grandma stood in the doorway, not angry, just weary. It's all right. Harold would want you to know. She crossed the room slowly, took the letter from my trembling fingers with care. I write to him sometimes. It keeps him close. Grandma, you don't have to feel sorry for me. Don't thank me, sweetheart. I made my choice, and I'd make it again in a heartbeat. She returns the letter to the box. As she did, her phone lit up on the dresser, a text notification from Mom. If you embarrass this family at that party, I will never forgive you. Grandma followed my gaze. Patricia has always been better at issuing threats than offering apologies. We're almost at the party now, Grandma's 70th birthday. 80 people gathered in one room, and my parents are coming. Everything I've shared, the rejections, the boats, the $800 sacrifice, it's all converging here. So tell me, what do you think will happen? Comment truth if you believe everything should finally come into the open. Comment peace if you think I should try to mend things no matter the cost. And if you haven't already, please hit subscribe. You won't want to miss what unfolds next. The day arrived. Grace Community Church's fellowship hall had been quietly transformed. Crisp white tablecloths, simple flower centerpieces, a looping photo slideshow near the entrance, 80 chairs circled around round tables, each glowing with a small candle. Grandma had no idea. We told her it was just a small lunch with a few friends. When she stepped through the doorway and saw the crowd, she froze, one hand rising to her chest. "Oh my," she whispered. "Oh my goodness." The room burst into applause. People she'd known for decades surged forward. Former students she taught, neighbors she supported through crises, church members she sat with during illness and grief. Hugs, laughter, tears. I stood off to the side, watching her face glow in a way I hadn't seen in years. This was right. This was exactly how it should be. Then they entered. Dad first in his navy blazer, the one reserved for important occasions. Mom followed in a cream dress, pearls gleaming at her throat. Megan and Jason trailed behind, Megan wearing the expression of someone dragged to an obligation. Dad scanned the room like he was appraising real estate. Mom located Grandma and pasted on a smile. "Mother, happy birthday." Grandma accepted the hug with polite stiffness. "Patricia, Richard, glad you could make it. Wouldn't miss it." Mom's eyes darted across the crowd, calculating angles. What a lovely little gathering. I remained in my corner. Uncle Derek materialized beside me. He'd driven 3 hours to be here. "You ready for this?" he murmured. "No." Good, neither am I. He gave my shoulder a steady squeeze. But whatever happens, you're not alone. Remember that. I watched my parents circulate, handshakes, small talk, the practiced performance of the devoted family. I wondered how long the mask would hold. After lunch, Pastor Reed stepped to the microphone. Friends, before we bring out the cake, I'd like to say a few words about our guest of honor. The room hushed. Grandma sat at the head table, faintly embarrassed by the spotlight. Grace Hayes has been the heartbeat of this community for 40 years. She taught many of your children. She served at our food bank every Thanksgiving. She visited the sick, comforted the grieving, and opened her home to anyone in need. The slideshow resumed. Decades of images. Grandma in her classroom, cradling newborns, standing beside Grandpa Harold in front of their first house. Mom shifted when childhood photos appeared. Young Patricia, bright-eyed, hugging her mother at some long-ago birthday. The slides moved on. Grandma and Grandpa in his workshop, the two of them at their 50th anniversary, just months before he passed. Then came the photo of the tools. Harold's woodworking set neatly arranged on his workbench. Chisels, planes, saws, the very set Grandma had sold to save my leg. Pastor Reed's voice grew quieter. Recently, Grace made an extraordinary sacrifice. She sold her late husband's most cherished possessions to help someone she loved deeply. Silence blanketed the room. Eyes turned toward me, then toward my parents. She never asked for recognition. She never does. But today, we want her to know her sacrifice was seen and honored. Linda Martinez rose, carrying a large wooden box. Grace, she said, voice thick, we couldn't let those tools leave the family. The congregation had quietly pooled funds and bought them back. This is our gift to you. Happy 70th birthday. Grandma's hands flew to her mouth. Tears spilled freely. I looked at my mother. Her face had turned to stone. Mom stood abruptly. Her chair scraped loudly across the floor. This is inappropriate, she said, voice slicing through the quiet. This is a private family matter to, she gestured sharply at the crowd, to strangers. These aren't strangers. They're your mother's community, the people who showed up when you didn't. Gasps rippled. Whispers followed. I don't need to explain myself to you. Mom's voice climbed higher, sharp and defensive. We made parenting decisions. That's our right. From the back of the room, Barbara Sims spoke again, calm but unmistakable. Parenting decisions? Your daughter nearly lost her leg. And she didn't, Mom shot back. She's fine. Everyone's fine. She's fine because other people stepped in, Uncle Derek said, stepping forward. Not you, not Richard. Dad rose too, face reddening. Stay out of this, Derek. You've always had a problem with how I run my family. Someone should have a problem with it, Derek's voice carried across the hall. You bought a $45,000 boat the same week your daughter was begging for surgery money. A boat, Richard, for show, while Ashley lay there watching infection crawl up her leg. Murmurs erupted, spreading like wildfire. Megan tugged urgently at Jason's sleeve, whispering. Jason's expression stayed unreadable, but his jaw clenched tight. Mom whirled toward Grandma, eyes blazing. Are you happy now, Mother? You've humiliated us. Grandma stood, 70 years old, small in stature, yet in that instant towering. No, Patricia, you humiliated yourselves. I simply stopped covering for you. The room fell utterly silent. Every pair of eyes shifted to me. Mom spun in my direction. Ashley, say something. Tell them this is all a misunderstanding. 80 people waited, breath held. I rose slowly. My leg throbbed, but I didn't lean on anything. There is no misunderstanding, Mom. Ashley, I asked you for help. I explained exactly what was happening. You said no. We had reasons. You had a boat. Silence stretched, thin and brittle. I drew a steady breath. I'm not here to catalog every wrong you've done. I'm not here for revenge or to make you feel small in front of everyone. That's not who I want to be. Mom's gaze darted around the room, searching for escape routes. But I'm also finished pretending, finished lying to protect your image, finished being the daughter who buries the family secret so no one has to feel uncomfortable. Dad stepped closer. You don't talk to your mother like, I'm not finished. I met his eyes. You called me a sunk cost. You said my surgery would teach me a lesson, and you bought a boat, while I lay in a hospital bed wondering if I'd ever walk again. His mouth opened, then shut. So here's what's happening. I'm setting a boundary. From now on, I decide who gets to be family to me. And family isn't just blood, it's the people who show up. I looked at Grandma, at Linda, at Pastor Reed, at Uncle Derek, at the dozens of faces I barely knew, yet who had done more for me in 1 month than my parents had in 26 years. You're not losing a daughter, I said, turning back to Mom. You lost her a long time ago. I'm just finally saying it out loud. I crossed to Grandma and wrapped my arms around her. The room exploded in applause. The sound made Mom flinch. She snatched her purse and started for the exit, but Megan caught her arm. Mom, stop. If we leave now, everyone will talk. They're already talking, Megan. Then don't make it worse. Dad stood frozen, face flushed deep purple. I'd never seen him speechless. It was almost satisfying. Then Jason moved unexpectedly. He stepped away from Megan and approached me. Ashley, his voice was low, respectful. I'm sorry for what you went through. It's not your fault, I know, but I'm still sorry. He glanced back at Megan, something unreadable flickering in his eyes. I didn't know about any of this. Megan called after him. Jason, come on, we need to go. He hesitated. Megan, maybe we should stay. Talk to your grandmother. She's not exactly her biggest fan right now. Maybe that's the problem. I watched him return to her. Their exchange was too quiet to overhear, but I saw Megan's face shift from irritation to something closer to fear. Meanwhile, Grandma stood by the gift table, cradling the box of tools, surrounded by friends who wanted to embrace her, shake her hand, tell her she was brave. She caught my eye and smiled. That smile said everything. Worth it. Dad finally spoke again. This isn't over, Ashley. I turned. You're right, but it's not up to you how it ends. He opened his mouth to reply, but Uncle Derek stepped between us. Richard, Patricia, I think it's time you left. This is Mom's party and you're ruining it. For a long, suspended moment, no one moved. Then Mom grabbed Dad's arm and pulled him toward the door. Megan followed, heels clicking sharply. Jason trailed last, glancing back once before the door closed. The party exhaled. Tension drained away like air from a balloon. Conversations restarted. Music returned. Grandma was led to the cake, surrounded by friends snapping photos. I slipped outside for fresh air. The parking lot was quiet. My leg ached fiercely. I'd been on it too long. I found a bench near the entrance and sat, letting the cool evening breeze soothe me. Footsteps approached. Mind if I sit? Jason asked. I gestured to the empty space. He sat, loosening his tie. Well, that was something. I'm sorry you got caught in the middle. Don't be. I'm glad I saw it. Megan and I've been together 2 years. I thought I knew her family. Turns out I only knew the version they wanted me to see. We sat in silence for a beat. I don't hate my sister, I said quietly. Megan was just raised differently. She got everything she wanted. I got what was left. It shaped us in opposite directions. You're defending her, I said. I'm explaining her. There's a difference. I looked at him. I don't hate my sister. I don't even hate my parents. I'm just done letting them hurt me. Jason nodded slowly. That's healthier than I'd probably be. Ask me again in 6 months. He laughed, genuine, surprised, then stood. For what it's worth, Ashley, I think you're the strongest person in that family. I learned it from my grandmother. I can tell. He paused. I need to go talk to Megan. We've got a lot to figure out. Good luck." He walked away. I watched him go, wondering what path their future would take. Then I went back inside to celebrate with the people who truly loved me. 1 week later, Uncle Derek called with news. Jason postponed the wedding. I set my coffee down hard. Postponed, not canceled. Postponed indefinitely. He told Megan they need to work some things out first, including how her family treats people. I should have felt triumphant. I didn't. I just felt exhausted. How's Megan taking it? Not well. She called your parents screaming, blamed them for the party disaster. They blamed your grandmother. Your grandmother apparently hung up on all of them. Good for her. There's more. The boat. Richard listed it for sale yesterday. That caught me off guard. The $45,000 boat. Turns out showing off to Jason's family doesn't matter much when Jason's family has serious concerns about your character. Derek's tone was dry. Funny how that works. 3 days later, Megan called. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. "Happy now?" Her voice was raw, scraped from crying. "No, Megan, I'm not happy any of this happened. You ruined my wedding." I let the accusation hang for a moment. "Megan, I didn't laugh when I told you I might lose my leg. I didn't buy a boat instead of helping. I didn't lie to Jason's family about who we really are. So it's all our fault? I'm not saying that. I'm saying consequences aren't revenge. They're just what happens when the truth finally comes out." Silence stretched. "You could have kept it quiet." I could have. I kept things quiet for 26 years, and where did that get me? She hung up without another word. I set the phone down and looked out at Grandma's garden. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt like something had permanently shifted, and no matter how much I might wish otherwise, there was no shifting it back. 2 weeks later, Mom appeared at Grandma's door. No call, no warning, just the doorbell on a Tuesday afternoon. I opened it and barely recognized her. No makeup, hair yanked back carelessly, eyes swollen and red. "Ashley," she said quietly, "can we talk?" I stepped aside and let her in. Grandma was out at bridge club, probably for the best. Mom sat on the living room sofa looking around as though she'd never been inside before. Mom's voice was quiet, almost fragile. "I want to fix things," she said, finally. I sat across from her on Grandma's old sofa and waited. "Your father and I have been talking. This whole situation has been difficult for everyone." "Yes, it has. The wedding is postponed. People are talking. Your father's been getting looks at the golf club." She twisted her hands in her lap. "We need to move past this as a family." "What does that look like to you?" She drew a breath. "Maybe you could tell people there was a misunderstanding, that we offered to help, but you wanted to be independent. Something like that." I stared at her, waiting for the rest of the sentence. It never came. "You want me to lie?" "I want us to heal, Ashley, and sometimes healing means smoothing things over." Her expression flickered, frustration cracking the careful mask. "I'm trying to meet you halfway." "No, you're trying to protect your reputation. That's not the same thing." "So what do you want from me? An apology?" "I don't want anything from you, Mom." I leaned forward. "That's what I've been trying to tell you. An apology won't undo what you did. What I need is distance, boundaries, space to live my life without being hurt by people who are supposed to love me." Her face hardened. "So that's it? You're cutting us off?" "I'm protecting myself. If you can't tell the difference, that's the whole problem." She left without saying goodbye. The door closed softly behind her. That night, Grandma came home and found me on the porch, staring into the dark. She eased down beside me, joints creaking like old floorboards. "Your mother was here." "How did you know?" "I can still smell her perfume. Hasn't changed in 30 years. We sat in silence for a long while. She wanted me to lie for them, I said. Tell people it was a misunderstanding. Of course she did, Grandma sighed. Patricia has always been better at managing appearances than facing truth. Were you surprised when she became like this? Grandma thought for a moment. Yes and no. She wasn't always this way, Ashley. When she was young, she was sweet, generous even. Then she met your father. You blame him? I blame no one. People make choices. Patricia chose to value money and status over everything else. That was her decision. But she's your daughter. Yes. Grandma's voice softened to something almost tender. And losing her is a grief I carry every single day. But I lost her long before this week, long before you were in that hospital bed. I lost her the day she stopped seeing people as people and started seeing them as investments. Tears stung my eyes. I'm sorry, Grandma. Don't be sorry, be better. She took my hand. You have a chance Patricia never took. You can choose differently. You can build a life rooted in love, not ledgers. What if I can't? What if I end up just like them? She squeezed my hand. The fact that you're asking that question means you won't. We sat together until the stars came out. Later, as I helped her inside, she mentioned casually, "Oh, I updated my will last month." Grandma, don't argue. Derek gets half, you get half. Patricia gets a letter explaining why. She paused. Some lessons can only be taught from the grave. 2 months after the party, I made up my mind. Grandma, I want to move in officially. She looked up from her crossword. You already live here. I mean permanently, not just for recovery. I'll pay rent, help with groceries, take care of the garden. The garden is mostly weeds. Then I'll weed it. She studied me over her reading glasses. You're not doing this out of guilt, are you? No, I'm doing it because this is the only place I felt like family in years. Her face softened. Then yes, of course. I returned to work the following week, full shifts at Mercy General. Physical therapy had done its job. My leg was stiff, but it held me. I'd never run marathons, but I could stand, walk, do my job. My coworkers threw a small welcome back gathering. Dana hugged me so tightly, I thought she'd crack a rib. We were worried about you, really worried. I'm okay now. You look okay. She studied my face. You look lighter. She was right. Something had lifted. Not quite happiness, but the absence of a weight I'd carried so long I'd forgotten its shape. Life found a new rhythm. Work, physical therapy, dinners with Grandma, weekend woodworking lessons in the garage using Harold's reclaimed tools. Then the wedding invitation arrived in the mail. Megan and Jason had rescheduled. I set the cream envelope on the kitchen table and left it there for 3 days. When Grandma finally noticed it, she asked, Are you going? I don't know. I picked it up, tracing the elegant script. What do you want to do? I want to stop being angry, and I'm not sure if going helps with that or makes it worse. Then decide when you're ready, not before. I slid the invitation into a drawer. I'd decide later, when I was ready. 3 weeks before the wedding, Megan called. I almost let it ring out, but curiosity, or maybe exhaustion, made me answer. Ashley, her voice was smaller, stripped of her usual polish. Can you talk? I'm listening. A long pause. I owe you an apology. I waited. Jason and I have been in therapy, couples counseling. His idea, but I agreed. We've been talking about a lot of things, including you. Me? The therapist asked me to describe our relationship, yours and mine. I started listing all the times I thought you'd been dramatic, needy, attention-seeking. and she just looked at me and asked if I ever considered that I was wrong. I sank on the edge of my bed. I didn't have an answer. I've never had to have an answer. I was the good one, the successful one, the one who did everything right, and you were there in the background, complaining. I wasn't complaining. I know. I know that now. When you said you might lose your leg, I laughed. I laughed, Ashley. What kind of person does that? Someone who was never taught to care. Silence. The therapist said the same thing, that I learned to see people the way mom and dad see them, useful or not useful, and you were never useful to my plans, so I dismissed you. What I did, who I was, and who you are now, I don't know yet. Someone trying to be better. That's a start. Will you come to the wedding? I don't know yet either. But Megan, thank you for calling. That's something you've never done before. I went to the wedding, not because I had forgiven everyone, not because everything was suddenly fixed, but because Grandma wanted to go and she needed someone to drive her. The ceremony was smaller than originally planned, 60 guests instead of 200, a quiet garden venue instead of the country club. Jason's family sat on one side, looking politely uncomfortable. My parents were there. Mom in champagne silk, Dad in a suit that now hung looser on his frame. He'd lost weight from stress, Uncle Derek had said. They saw me enter with Grandma. Mom started toward us, then hesitated, changed course, and went to greet someone else instead. Fine by me. Megan looked beautiful. Nervous, but beautiful. When she walked down the aisle, she caught my eye and gave a small nod. Just a quiet acknowledgement, but it was more than we'd shared in years. The reception had its awkward moments. Some guests knew the story, others didn't. Conversations faltered when certain topics arose. I didn't stay long. Danced once with Uncle Derek, ate a slice of cake, hugged Grandma when she said she was ready to leave. As we headed out, Megan caught me at the door. You came. I said I might. She smiled, not the old, polished, performance-ready smile, but something softer, more genuine. Thank you for giving me a chance. I'm giving us both a chance. She hugged me. Brief, tentative. We weren't sisters who hugged. Maybe we could learn. In the car, Grandma patted my hand. How do you feel? I thought about it. Okay. Not great, not terrible, just okay. Okay is enough, sweetheart. For now, okay is more than enough. I drove us home through quiet streets, past houses with warm lit windows, past the hospital where strangers had helped save my leg. Okay was enough for now. 6 months later, my leg had healed fully. A thin, silvery scar traced up my calf, feigning with time. Dr. Reeves called it a battle wound. I called it a reminder. I'd been promoted to shift supervisor at Mercy General. Better hours, better pay, a team of nurses who respected me. Grandma and I had settled into an easy rhythm. I cooked weekdays, she cooked weekends. We watched Jeopardy every night at 7. She was teaching me woodworking, basic projects but deeply satisfying. My hands were learning what Harold's hands had once known. Megan and I texted occasionally. Nothing profound, just, how are you? Saw this and thought of you. Happy birthday. It wasn't closeness, but it wasn't coldness either. My parents kept their distance. Mom sent a Christmas card with a generic message. Dad sent nothing. I didn't expect it anymore, and the silence didn't cut like it once had. It simply was. One afternoon, a patient's daughter stopped me in the hallway. Middle-aged, exhausted, frightened. You're the nurse who almost lost your leg, right? I heard your story from someone at church. I braced myself. Yes. My mother is cutting me off. won't help pay for her own grandchildren's medical bills, says it'll build character. She gave a bitter laugh. Sound familiar? Too familiar. How did you get through it? I thought about it. I stopped waiting for them to become who I needed them to be. I found people who already were. She nodded slowly. Did it hurt, letting go? Every day at first, then less, then hardly at all. I placed a hand on her arm. You're allowed to choose yourself, even over family, especially over family who doesn't choose you back. She thanked me and walked away with slightly straighter shoulders. That's when I knew the hardest part was truly over. Before I close this story, I want to share something I've learned about my family, about myself, and maybe about you. My father grew up poor, hand-me-down clothes, food stamps at the grocery store, poor. He fought his way into the middle class through sheer determination, and somewhere along the way, he began seeing everything through a financial lens. Children weren't children, they were investments. Megan was the high-return stock. I was the underperformer he wanted to divest. That doesn't excuse what he did, but it explains it. My mother was different. She came from a loving home, Grandma's home, but she married my father and gradually adopted his worldview. It was easier than resisting, easier than questioning. By the time I arrived, she'd forgotten how to love without conditions. And Megan was the product of both, raised to believe worth came from achievement, that love was earned through success. No one taught her empathy. She dismissed me because I measured low on the only scale that mattered to her. As for me, my weakness was clear. I spent 26 years trying to earn love from people who had already decided I wasn't worth it. I mistook silence for peace. I thought if I just tried harder, accommodated more, swallowed my pain quietly, they would finally see me. They never would have. That wasn't a failure of my effort. It was a failure of their capacity. If any of this sounds familiar, if you've ever been the overlooked one, the scapegoat, the family member who could never quite measure up, hear me clearly. You are not broken. You are not unlovable. You are not a sunk cost. Setting boundaries isn't betrayal. It's survival. And choosing yourself, even when it means losing people who share your blood, is the bravest act you can perform. Family isn't always the people you're born to. Sometimes it's the grandmother who sells her treasures to save you, the strangers who give because they've heard your story, the friends who show up when blood relatives walk away. That's my story. Thank you for walking through it with me. If you've made it this far, please like, subscribe, and share this with someone who might need to hear it. In the description, I've linked another story about boundaries and healing. Check it out if this resonated. And if you have your own story of setting boundaries, of finding real family, drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear it.